I wanted to make a video about uh, America and Canada. Uh, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but it seems to me that, and I've been called out on this by other YouTubers that I like to speak in generalizations, and this is because I do a lot of research and then I can't remember all of my references. And but so bear with me. Sometimes I'm just kind of I've taken in an impression of something and I don't necessarily have all my facts to hand. But it seems to me that every time the US has a right wing or Republican government, Canada seems to have the opposite, and vice versa. I'm pretty sure that when you guys in the US had Bill Clinton, we had. Oh, there must have been some overlap between Jean Chrétien and Bill Clinton. So there was a little bit of an overlap. But when you guys had Bush, we had Chrétien again. And then when you had Obama, we had Harper. And Harper was. I was not living in Canada at the time because I have not actually lived that much of my life in Canada. I've lived mostly in Asia. But a lot of my Canadian friends complained about the Harper era. And then now there is Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. And you guys have Trump. I don't think that's a fair trade because our Trudeau, it gets so partisan with the right versus left, and now right-wing Canadians are saying that the left is automatically corrupt, but they're not kind of taking into account the fact that whichever government is screwing up, everyone says they're corrupt, and that can be the right or the left. And I mean, I think actually that something has to be done to address the fact that absolute power corrupts. And I kind of think that this is why I'm a little bit jealous of America, of the United States at the moment, because you guys have Marianne Williamson. Like, you guys have gold. I don't know how to explain to you how good that is. Because you have someone who understands psychology running for president. Actually, you have someone who understands psychology in the White House right now. I don't know if you know that also. But Donald Trump has done a lot of research and self-help kind of psychology, which enables him to understand what inspires people. And I think that Marianne Williamson also knows that. Now, the reason that's important in government is that problems, like solutions, are motivated by emotion. Emotion kind of is the forerunner of everything that we do. And whether it's, we tend to intellectualize things later, and we would I'm sure that many sort of Kyle Kalinske types would like to imagine that we can have intellectual objective autonomy and just sort of be neutral at will. But I think that you can't do that without understanding the way that emotions work. And you certainly can't just decide to do it and then do it. It's not that simple. Which is why you have psychology, and why people get into spirituality also, because it if psychology fails them, because it's not a perfect science, then they're going to turn to spirituality when they are dealing with emotions that are overwhelming. And anyway, so the reason that I am talking about the fact that you guys are so lucky in America is for many, many years, I was a rather smug Canadian, even as a kind of expat. When I would look at things in America, like gun violence or just the movie industry with inevitable kind of gratuitous violence, or also kind of, I remember feeling quite proud about the fact that Canada was less censorious about sex, and that our movies were kind of more sexually liberated, but the violence was a lot more regulated. And I remember feeling smug about that. Um, because I tend to be suspicious of prudery and what prudery leads to. Because I tend to think that when people get judgmental about sex, then they can get quite nasty, at least historically, about it. Which is why, you have homophobia and you have slut shaming, and I actually think that rape is also a symptom of people's fear of sexuality and their judgments about it. Anyway, I, as usual, am going off on a tangent. So yeah, so I was smug about America, and I'm not feeling so smug right now because, we elected Justin Trudeau and we thought he was a really enlightened being, and now they're upset at him about painting his face brown at some event. I don't really care about that. I know that, like, I mean, it probably wasn't that cool, but I also look. The guy wants to be Indian, for whatever reason. I think it's a fetish, and I don't think he was doing it to be disparaging. Um, but I am mad at him, and I'm mad at him about the fact that he turned on his Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, who is the closest thing we have ever had in Canadian politics to a Marianne Williamson type, and she's still not even close. But he sold her down the river because of this company in Quebec, and basically attempted to subvert the course of justice, I would say. Now, and I mean, there was a whole slew of Canadians that thought that he should have resigned over that. But I am very conscious of the fact that right now I am watching American politics, and it's not because I am so passionate about America per se, but your candidates, and particularly Marianne Williamson, but I will say that Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders were definitely a surprise for me. I did not expect to see people who are so human running for office, because usually they're not. usually, usually they're these sort of robotic overlords, and I'm usually like, I'm not surprised that such a large portion of the population does not vote, because what they give you is crap to vote for. You've got these people who, first of all, I actually think that the dress code is not helping. I think that requiring men to be in penguin suits all the time, it it tends to make them all blend together, and then they all talk in the same language, which is like these economic terms that are supposed to sound, I don't know, are they shooting for wisdom or something? But it just, anyway, I've ranted about this before. I'm not going to do it again. But when I first heard Marianne Williamson speak, and I heard her talk about the sociopathic economic system, and just that term alone is so refreshing. And and I'm gonna say something, a little criticism of Tulsi Gabbard in terms of her speaking style, because I think that her points are all right on, and I think she's genuine when she makes them. But I am gonna say that she tends to say things in the same tone of voice in the same way every time. And I think if you're wanting to inspire people um, homogeny is not your best way to go. Uh, I mean, be consistent, but you want to just. I mean, the amazing thing that I keep seeing about Marianne Williamson is she's got no flashcards. There's no prompters. No, she's just on the fly, and you see her stop and kind of check herself, and sometimes she uses the wrong word or something, but not that much really. I mean, she's pretty comfortable just talking and being herself, and I hope that they don't try to censor her too much, because I know that her campaign, I'm pretty sure, because she kind of intimated in one interview that her campaign was on her case about something, and I suspect it's the fact that she says what's on her mind. We like that. I'm sorry. I think that it was a huge benefit to Trump's campaign that he tended to say what was on his mind, because we're very used to having stuff spoon fed as after it's been processed, like processed food. And what is it anymore? I don't even know what they're trying to feed us. So I find it hugely invigorating to see people, candidates, speaking human talk. And now, on to now. If you've watched my channel, you may know that I'm a pagan and I'm interested in witches, and I love powerful female characters, icons. I find this interesting. I have always found it interesting. I idealized my mother, who was definitely kind of a political activist in her own way, and I want a Marianne Williamson for Canada. Not a Marianne Williamson exactly, because I think that she's a little bit bombastic for Canadians. Honestly, she's very theatrical, and I find it entertaining. But I feel like Canadians tend to get suspicious when they see that, because of our sibling rivalry with America. We tend to regard showmanship with suspicion. Because we think we're going to get taken for a ride, and we'll get ripped off for money or whatever. I don't know. That's just Canadians. If you're too enthusiastic, they're like, what's going on? However, so I've been watching Jody Wilson-Raybould, who was the former Attorney General of Justin Trudeau, and she has become iconic because she, in a very nonpartisan way, basically exposed what he did and what actually I don't think it was all his fault. I think this is something that has been going on in governments for a long time, but she really kind of made a name for herself in Canadian politics by doing this. I don't think that was her intention, but you never know with politicians, honestly. It could all be a publicity stunt, but I kind of doubt it. She doesn't seem like the type. She's Waiwakai Nation, and she's very what they say about what my friend who was First Nations, partially First Nations, always used to say about First Nations people generally, in terms of their temperament, is that they're very no nonsense. And now, so due to the fact that she has become iconic and she is a First Nations lady, very spiritual, matrilineal tradition in her nation, I feel like she is a really annoying speaker. When asked a question, she tends to talk like a politician. She equivocates. She never just says yes or no to something. And they asked her about, okay, this is a sensitive question. They recently asked her about wanting to be prime minister because her father had said that when she was a little girl, she had wanted to be a prime minister. And he has 2 daughters, and they're both very political. Now, so the interviewer brought this up, and she did this thing, like she started to say that she really wants to serve that she's focused on Vancouver Granville right now, and he was like, no, I knew that you were going to say that, but just, in terms of this. And then she said, well, she kind of got irritated. She was like, well, I'm trying to answer your question, but she wasn't. Then she went down on this other tangent and about what inspired her, about what her father said, which is nice. But look, the reason that he's asking that is because a lot of Canadians want to know, and because they're very intrigued by her, um, and they want a candidate that they can get passionate about. I know that you're supposed to vote for the party. I know that you're supposed to vote for the leader of your party in your riding and not for the prime minister. Nobody votes for the prime minister officially, but psychologically, they're voting for the prime minister. Let's be real. Because mentally, we are still king making in our minds. I mean, that's what we'd like to do. That's what every citizen wants to do with their vote. They want to make a king. And because our subconscious is still kind of in a monarchy. So what democracy has done for us is provided a situation where we can vote for our monarch and then blame them when they screw it up. Anyway, so all of that aside, I mean, that's a whole pickle that we can't solve in this video, but what am I saying? Yeah, so I like Jody Wilson-Raybould, but I think that I would go nuts listening to her. And this is why I find American politics a little bit more invigorating right now, because there's a lot more honesty. Kind of forthright. Now, I think that the leader of the NDP party in Canada, Jagmeet Singh, did a pretty good job at the Canadian debates, the English debates, of kind of cutting through the nonsense, because Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer were doing the usual right-left dance, and they were talking over each other and nobody could hear them. And I don't think they came off very well. I think that Jagmeet Singh did come off better, especially when he said that Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau were arguing about which of them was worse for Canada, which, yeah, pretty much. I mean, Andrew Scheer has not released his platform, so we're supposed to be impressed with, I don't know what, his criticism of Justin Trudeau, which anyone can do and anyone can see. And Justin Trudeau just kept saying what he had already accomplished, which has already been proven to not be enough. Especially climate change and reconciliation, which are kind of two leading issues. So, now what I like about Jody Wilson-Raybould is that she did show, especially in her testimony about what had happened with the SNC-Lavalin case, she kept showing how she had been trying and continuing to advocate for Indigenous people's rights, and I think this is something that she's very passionate about. Now, this is another area where she's not terribly strong when she's interviewed, though, because she had been asked why more hadn't gotten done a couple of years ago, or it was a year ago, and her answer was, important talks are happening, and I wanted to shoot myself. Like, that answer is not powerful. Don't say that shit. Like, Canadians, stop trying to sound professional. Just say what's going on. Because actually the Canadian people do have a right to know. And Jody Wilson-Raybould herself has said that. That's why she taped Michael Warnick, which she received a lot of criticism for. But I mean, yeah, if the clerk of the Privy Council is phoning you at home to discuss something government related, yeah, you have the right to tape him. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I don't have any problem with her taping him, because I feel that when he's phoning in that capacity, he's already waived his rights to privacy, because he's not phoning to talk about his, sex dream that he's conflicted about. Let's be real. He was phoning to try and influence her decision once again. And so she was right to tape him, and she kind of knew that was Sorry, it's a plastic bag. She knew that that's what he was phoning about, especially after the previous meetings. So, I'm just saying, wouldn't it be lovely to have liberal, left wing, or even just like more humanitarian governments in both Canada and the US at the same time? That would be kind of astounding. And the reason that I'm bringing up Jody Wilson-Raybould is because I think that splash that she made in front of the Justice Committee is enough that she could run for Prime Minister. Now she's not the leader of the Liberal Party. Now she's running as an independent in her district. So I don't know, could she run as a independent for Prime Minister and then win? That would, I don't know, that's kind of almost unimaginable. But, well, it's unimaginable because it's never happened before, but I don't see why you can't. I don't know. I don't even know, actually. Like, I feel embarrassed about how little I know about Canadian politics. I don't know if you have to be a member of Parliament to run for a Prime Minister. I think you have to already be the leader of your party. Yeah, that's the same in the US also. Anyway. So, what am I saying? Yeah, I'm jealous. We don't have a witchy woman. That's what I want. And by a witchy woman, I mean, maybe some of you are thinking that I'm kind of trying to push some religious thing. What I mean by a witchy woman is a wise woman. A woman, that's what that word used to mean. It's from Anglo-Saxon. It means wise woman. It means a woman who knows stuff that other people don't know. Or a man, actually. But I think it was applied more to women initially. Anyway, we don't have one of those. We do not have a Marianne Williamson. Elizabeth Warren does not come close to a witchy woman. Bernie Sanders is closer. I think he leads with his head more, though. And I don't know if leading with your head is the best way to get votes. I know that people think that right now the climate is such that people are so burned by Donald Trump that they don't want to lead with their heart anymore. I don't think that's a choice you can make. I think that you lead with your heart even when you think you're leading with your head. So I have rambled on for 22 minutes and I don't even know what I said. Anyway, yeah. Let's have kind of harmonious governments. I'd be curious to see what kind of if the Canadian and American government was in sort of concord, what they could achieve in the world, actually, because then they'd be sort of on the same page. That would be interesting, because usually we're having to compromise quite a bit, and then things get more stymied. Anyway, maybe that's how it has to work. I don't know. So what am I saying? I don't know. We want Marianne Williamson. If you guys don't want her, can you send her over? Okay, bye for now.